Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Cover Zero podcast, the show where I cover the least in the best way possible. I'm your host, Jason Wells. Today is Wednesday, December 18th. Another Miami Dolphins season. Another me being disappointed. Tale as old as time. Really, we play a somewhat good team, because I'm not giving the Texans a lot of credit. I don't think that they're a very good team. They have a winning record, and Miami is allergic to beating teams with winning records. So yeah, it was a bad week of football watching for me. A lot of good games out there, and we'll talk about that in the recap. But really, what capped this whole week off for me is I'm now in the loser finals for my own fantasy football league, where I might have to go to Sudbury to take a picture with the Big Nickel, because I thought it would just be so funny if that was the loser punishment this year. But here we are. Thank you, Amari Cooper, for putting up a whopping 0 points on the day, not even getting a target. More guys with more touchdowns than Amari Cooper this week. Dan Skipper, offensive tackle for the Lions. Jonah Williams, offensive tackle for the Cardinals. And Sam Hubbard, defensive end for the Bengals. Bad weekend for me. Extremely bad weekend for me. But this episode, going to recap all of the Week 15 games. And I'm also going to give out my very early pre-draft top 15 prospects. Obviously subject to change, but it'll be oh my god, it'll be a good episode. Let's get into it here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm disappointed, obviously. But I guess let's just get into the top 15 draft prospects. I don't really have to spend a ton of time on this because it is very early. And a lot of these guys, I've watched a little bit. I've watched some live games. I've watched a little bit of their highlights and read a bunch about them as prospects. But again, lots of time between now and the draft, so this is my very early top 15. I won't really spend much time on this, but as of right now, no QBs in my top 15. I don't think I will end up having any quarterbacks in my top 15, because the only two QBs that are worth a damn in this class are Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, and I don't think either of them are really that great. I was trying to think of in the last 10 years, because really in the last 10 years is when I really started paying attention to football and paying attention to the draft. This might be the second or third worst QB class in that frame. I'll probably say it's the second worst, because I think 2022 is the overwhelming worst class of the last decade. And the other one that's kind of comparable to it is 2014, when it was Blake Bortles, Teddy Bridgewater, Johnny Manziel. Those were the big, Derek Carr, I guess. Those were the top names. And I think that's still better than Cam Ward and Sanders. But either way, no QBs in my top 15. But let's get into my top 15 here. Starting off with Tyler Warren, tight end out of Penn State. The guy can do it all. He has lined up in the backfield as a running back. He is a very good yak threat. Huge. He's 6'6", 260, can move people in the run game, in the pass blocking too. And right now he is my tight end one. Again, subject to change. There are a lot of really good tight ends in this class. This is one of the deeper position groups in the draft, but I really like a guy like Tyler Warren. I think his one weakness is he doesn't really separate that well, but when you're 6'6", 260 and you can maybe just box people out, makes it a little bit easier. We'll keep going though. At number 14, we have Derek Harmon out of Oregon, the defensive tackle, fourth-year player and a big part of this Oregon team and why their defense especially is so good. Was a transfer from Michigan State, exploded onto the scene this year, 9.5 sacks, a very good interior defensive line player, and I'm giving a little bit of Oregon bias here, but Derek Harmon I do like quite a bit. At number 13, I have Shavon Revel Jr. out of East Carolina. Again, smaller school player and didn't actually really play this season. He got injured a few games into the year, but his tape from last year and even those couple games this year has been very good. Again, subject to change, but I think that he is someone worth noting at the top of the draft class. I don't think he is up there with those top two corners that I'll talk about shortly, but he is, I think, at the next tier group of corners with guys like Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame as well. But I like Siobhan Revell Jr. At number 12, we have Luther Burden, wide receiver out of Missouri. Big wide receiver, didn't have a great year this year, but that was mainly because the Missouri offense didn't have as good of a year as they did last year. Burden was many people's wide receiver one going into this season. And yeah, didn't have the production, but that 2023 production and tape was great. And again, the tape was still good on Burden this year, and he has a whole draft process to make sure, but I don't think there's anyone that's going to pass him. I think he's the clear number 2, because I do think there's also a clear number 1, and we'll talk about him soon. But Luther Burden, very good wide receiver in this class. At number 11, we have Kelvin Banks out of Texas, their big offensive tackle. Brett Coleman was tweeting about him earlier this morning, where he thinks that Kelvin Banks would have ended up as offensive tackle number 2 last year, and it was a very good offensive tackle class last year. Obviously, Joe Alt was the main guy, but Coleman, who I respect his opinion a lot, would have put Banks above guys like Fuaga, like Latham, like Troy Fontenot. Am I forgetting? Like Olu Fashanu, and that is a lot of praise, and this is a offensive tackle class that hasn't really shaped itself out yet. There's a few names out there, but I think Kelvin Banks is the top offensive tackle in the draft, and I will specify offensive tackle because I got another guy in just a few spots ahead of him who is the best offensive lineman in the class, in my opinion. At number 10, we have Michael Williams out of Georgia. Big, long, rangy edge defender. Got banged up kind of during the middle of the season, took a dip off, but he is still a very good player. And I talked about tight ends being one of the strongest position groups in this draft. Edge is right up there with it. Right now, I have 3 edge players in my top 15. Yeah, 3 edge players in my top 15 right now. I think, again, subject to change. There's a few other guys who just missed the cut who I expect to be first-round picks too. But Michael Williams is one of the better guys out there right now. At number 9, this is my top offensive lineman. It is Will Campbell out of LSU, their left tackle. But this is where it gets tricky. A lot of people don't think that Will Campbell has the athleticism and the arm length to stay at tackle at the next level. And people are maybe projecting him to be like a Peter Skronsky type, where he played tackle basically his entire life in college, and then he goes to the pros, and now he's a guard. But Will Campbell can be a damn good, very, very good guard in the league, and that's why I do have him edging out Kelvin Banks right now, just as my top offensive lineman. But Will Campbell, very good offensive lineman in this class. At number 8, we have another edge player here. We have James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. I think he was, going into the year, many people's number 1 player in the class. Still had a very good season, very good power rusher. Again, very just good size, prototypical size. I think if I want to compare him to someone last year, it's Jared Verse. Play style-wise, I don't know if that's the best comparison, but I think James Pierce, someone like Verse, who is just so good at everything across the board, where some of the other guys have better traits and everything, but Pierce is just solid everywhere, and that's kind of how I viewed Verse, and Verse is having maybe a Defensive Rookie of the Year season, so James Pierce Jr. at number 8. At number 7, I have Malachi Starks, the safety out of Georgia. My personal favorite for who I want the Dolphins to draft, because we're going to need 2 safeties. Sorry, Javon Holland, but I think your time in Miami is done. And Malachi Starks is the best safety far and away in the class. Great athlete, incredible ball skills, willing tackler, does it all. Interested to see what he will do at the next level, but I'm a big fan of Malachi Starks. At number 6, we have Abdul Carter out of Penn State. He's comparable to Micah Parsons, in my opinion, for many things, and not just the Penn State stuff, but Micah Parsons, when he was at Penn State, wasn't just a pure edge rusher like he is now for the Cowboys. And I do think that's not a great thing for the Cowboys. I have other issues with that, but I won't really get into them now. Abdul Carter is a phenomenal edge rusher, phenomenal athlete, but he can also play a little bit of off-ball linebacker, play some coverage snaps, and I think having a guy who is that versatile is huge. And I think versatility is a huge thing, and I think that that's what the Cowboys are missing with someone like Micah Parsons, who you can put him in all these spots and use him, have him blitzing instead of just, okay, no, you're going to line up at edge, and that's all you're going to be doing. Abdul Carter has that versatility like Parsons. We don't see it from Parsons, but I think Abdul Carter is the best edge player in this class and one of the blue chip players that you can get, in my opinion. Now, there might be a little bit of controversy with my number 5 here, but number 5, I have Travis Hunter. And it's not because I don't believe Travis Hunter is, again, he's number 5 in the class. That's already great. But the reason I don't have him higher is because I don't think he's the best receiver in the class, and I don't think he's the best corner in the class, and he's such a weird projection because he's obviously very talented at both. I don't know how NFL teams are going to see him, whether he's going to be a full-time corner and maybe have some package like plays at wide receiver, or if Hunter is going to be like, no, I still want to play both sides of the ball. That'll be very tough at the NFL level. But Travis Hunter is an unbelievable special player, Heisman winner. Yeah, his best position is wide receiver. His best position is defensive back. I think he's a good wide receiver, but I don't think he would be in my top 15 if he was just a pure wide receiver. His talent and his traits at corner is what makes him special, in my opinion. The wide receiver stuff is just the cherry on top. But right now, he's number 5. He could easily be my number 1 player, though. At number 4, we have my number 1 corner. It is Will Johnson out of Michigan. Just does it all. He is a true lockdown number 1 corner. And again, while I have the concerns with Travis Hunter, I do think Travis Hunter is a lockdown number 1 corner. But Will Johnson is, I just know he's going to play corner, and that's all he is going to do. And Travis Hunter will have kind of not distractions of maybe playing offense and maybe wanting to play more offense, but Will Johnson is a very, very good corner, my number 1 corner in this class. At number 3, we have Heisman runner-up Ashton Jeanty. Will he be a top 5 pick? I doubt it, because that's just the running back value. But my God, is he a special player. Obviously led the nation in rushing yards. And his yards after contact would have put him second in the league, or in the nation in rushing yards. He's a special player, can catch the ball a little bit, doesn't have great breakaway speed, but he just makes guys miss. He's so patient as a runner. Ashton Jeanty, my number 3 player. At number 2, we have Tet McMillan out of Arizona, my number 1 wide receiver in the class. 6'5", great contested catches, great jump ball receiver. Doesn't separate well, but when you're 6'5" and you can kind of control and you can just go after the ball at like the high point, I don't think it really matters. He is, again, I think he's great. He'd be a top 5 receiver in last year's class. Last year's class was great. But yeah, Tet McMillan I think he would have been in kind of my Brian Thomas Jr. tier. I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. is the best wide receiver of that class now, but I think that's kind of where I would have ranked him compared to to last year's class. He would have been closer to Brian Thomas Jr. than to the big 3, who they're all playing well, but either way, Tet McMillan, very, very good receiver. Someone will be getting a very good ball player. And at number 1, I have Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. I don't know why I thought this. I thought Mason Graham was black this entire time until all of a sudden I was watching that Michigan-Ohio State game a few weeks ago, and they showed Mason Graham, and I was like, he's a white guy. Sure. Because all I was hearing from Mason Graham is like, oh, he's such an incredible athlete and so powerful and blah, blah, blah. And when I hear incredible athlete, I don't think of big white guys, but Mason Graham, like Cooper DeJean, he's just breaking through those fake ceilings that I'm giving players, but I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Mason Graham is awesome. I think he is the best player in this class, and I value trench play a lot. The Dolphins don't value trench play, but I do, and that's why Mason Graham is my number 1 player. I think he will be a difference maker for someone on that interior defensive line, but I think I will say as of right now, I have 6 blue chip players on my board, and those are guys who I think will be home runs right out of the gate. The best players in the class, obviously, and they are my top 6. But those are my top 15 NFL draft prospects. And I guess let's get right into the Week 15 recap, starting off with the 2 games that we watched on Monday night. Which one do I want to start off with? Let's start off with Bears 12, Vikings 30. The Vikings just continue to dominate. Like, really, this Bears team is just so extremely sad. Wouldn't have expected anything else, really. Sam Darnold, solid game, a little bit dipped down to earth, but like, again, the team is playing so well around him. This defense continues to make plays. It's just the Vikings are good. The Vikings are very good. Kevin O'Connell, Coach of the Year, now that the Lions lost and they've got all their injuries. Kevin O'Connell should be the front runner for Coach of the Year right now. I'd say it's a 3-way race between Kevin O'Connell, Sean Payton, and honestly, I think those are the only 2 guys who should really get any consideration, in my opinion. But yeah, the Vikings, they just continue to roll. They did exactly what they should have done to the Bears, and they did. Bears on the other side, give it up. It's a team that isn't playing hard, that has no direction, and I don't blame them. When you're now on your second head coach, you've had 3 offensive coordinators this year, it's tough. But yeah, there's just no fight left in this Bears team whatsoever. I have no idea if Ryan Poles' job is safe at this point. I would clean house if I were the Bears, but the Bears just don't make smart decisions. So only one way to find out. Caleb Williams, though, on the other hand, he's trying. I think that's like the best thing that you can say about him right now, but he's been so up and down through the entire year, but you see what he can be. He isn't playing like that. And again, there's a lot to blame, including him, because he hasn't played great this entire season. But he has had some wow moments, some wow games where you can say, okay, I can see it. We just there needs to be more from everyone on the Bears. They need to figure out the coaching. DJ Moore gave up basically as soon as the season started. Rome Odunze's having a fine rookie season, but not great. Keenan Allen is old and overweight. The offensive line is bad. Like, again, there's a lot. DeAndre Swift can't run the ball. I mean, he did pretty effectively in this one, but he can't run the ball in general. There's a lot to fix on the Bears, but Caleb Williams at least looks like he can be the guy. But again, it is extremely tough to be the guy when you're on your second head coach and third offensive coordinator and the season isn't even done yet. That's just kind of the story of the Bears. We'll see how they do next year, but for right now, they are a dumpster fire. The other Monday night game here, Falcons 15, Raiders 9. This, again, living in a hypothetical world, I think that the Raiders got screwed at the end of the game. There was a roughing the passer call on Robert Spillane that should absolutely not have been called. That would have forced the Falcons to punt with, I think, like 2 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock. The Raiders still would have had 2 timeouts to work with, but that call gets made. They still punt the ball away, and Desmond Ridder manages to lead a drive down the field where he has 2 Hail Mary chances at the end, ends up getting picked off. But I don't know. You give them a couple timeouts, you give them an extra minute on the clock that they have to work with, and I think it was probably more than a minute. I think that the Raiders would have done it. And the Falcons are just a sad, sad, sad team. Mark Davis probably paid off the refs. I don't know with what money, and you might be thinking, why would the Raiders pay off the refs if they're the one that got the bad call? The Raiders clearly want Shedeur Sanders. I don't think that that's a great pick at first overall. I think Shedeur is a fine quarterback, but I think that that's just clearly the direction that the Raiders are going with at this point. It's fine, I guess, whatever, but we will talk about the Falcons here just for a little bit. I was giving Kirk Cousins a little bit of grace with how he's been playing recently. Obviously, his last 3 games before this one were absolutely dreadful. 8 interceptions, no touchdowns, playing really bad football, but it's like, okay. Kirk Cousins has played very good football for the majority of his career. A 3-game bad stretch, like, sure. This should have been the turnaround game for Kirk. The Raiders stink. Their defense is bad. They lost their best. Max Crosby is done for the rest of the season, didn't play in this one. And Kirk Cousins was still god-awful, couldn't move, statue in the pocket, and that might be it for Kirk. I can't believe that after 1 season, the Kirk Falcons thing is already dead, but Michael Penix should get some snaps. Now, they're still fighting technically for a playoff spot. I think the Bucs more or less have that wrapped up. But, yeah, Kirk Cousins, I don't know. I think he's done. I think that, again, he's not done. He will still have a job if he wants as a bridge quarterback or as a backup somewhere next year. But it's just another bad contract given out by the Falcons. And at least they kind of have their backup plan with Michael Penix, and they better hope that he's the guy. Because if he's not the guy, that whole organization, clean house, restart from the beginning. But Kirk and the Falcons are... It's so weird because they had like a few really nice game stretch, but it's the same thing with when Drew Brees got up there later in his career where, okay, he'd start off the season relatively hot, get it going, and then it's just, he's old. His body isn't recovering as fast, and then as games and practices go on and on and on, that recovery time becomes less and less and less, and this is where we are with Kirk now. Not probably good if he comes in relief in a few game short spurt, but as a full-time starter, I think that is it for Kirk at this point. Raiders on the other side, not really much. I do think the Desmond Ridder revenge game almost happened, but really I have no one else to really shout out on this team. Robert Spillane did have a very good game, even though that roughing the passer penalty was on him. It was a bad call. But the other person I will shout out here is Ameer Abdullah. I think I did this like a month or so ago, but the fact that Ameer Abdullah, who has been in the league for over a decade now, is in his early 30s as a running back and has never really had any real production as a starting NFL running back. But the fact that he can come in and give this Raiders team a little bit of spark here and there, I think the locker room loves him. But he made some key plays late in this game that brought the Raiders into near striking distance to win this game, and I do think that he deserves some love. Shout out to shout out to Amir Abdullah. Good guy. Good guy. We'll go all the way back to Thursday night football now. Awful game to watch. Rams 12, Niners 6. The Niners season is officially done, and it ended terribly. Now, I didn't expect this game to be a rainy, wet game when I made my when I did the blind recap on Thursday, but that's exactly what we got, and it was a slop fest. Not a lot of good plays whatsoever from either side. But again, the Rams did enough late to come away with it. Matt Stafford in this one, 160 yards, 97 of those going to Puka Nacua. And I thought I had Puka Nacua on my fantasy team, and I was like, damn, I got 14 points for Puka Nacua in a bad game. And Joe, the guy who I was playing, Brock Purdy, not a good game. Put up, I think, like 3.9 something fantasy points, and I was like, I'm going to win this one. Little did I know that I would have, who was it? Tyrone Tracy, Tucker Kraft, Tua, and Amari Cooper all put up a combined 12 points. Yeah, not very good. The Rams, though, again, leading the division right now, in the driver's seat for the division. Excited to see how they finish down the stretch, but their offense, again, wasn't a great performance for them on Thursday, but this offense is still very, very lethal. Shout out to Goo from The Masked Singer, Kobe Turner getting 2 sacks in this one as well. Niners on the other side here. Deebo Samuel, after firing off a tweet complaining about how he's just not getting the ball, even though he was leading the team in touches anyways. They were force feeding Deebo the ball, and to the detriment of the team. He dropped a couple passes, one that would have been a would-be touchdown. He's just got no juice anymore. That season from a few years ago where he was an all-pro and he was catching the ball well and making people miss and getting plays in the backfield, that Deebo is gone. That Deebo is far and gone. He just doesn't have the athleticism to do what he was able to do a few seasons ago. And that's just the story of the NFL. Again, father time catches up with everyone. I think this is probably his last season as a Niner. And I know that some team is going to give Deebo Samuel not a bag compared to what some of these wide receivers are getting, but it would not shock me if someone gave Deebo Samuel a 3-year, $40 million deal. And I think that is way too much money to get a gadget player at this point for Deebo. But yeah, not a good performance from the Niners just in general. Other person to talk about here is, well, I'll start off with the positive of this, but Dre Greenlaw comes back from his Achilles injury. He played really, really well in the second half, or in the first half. Second half, leaves the game. Obviously got some tightness there with the injury, and they don't want to rush him back into anything, so that's okay. They got Devondre Campbell, who's been playing relatively solid the whole season, and Devondre Campbell refuses to get in the game. He's just like, nope, I'm not playing anymore. Didn't pull a Vontae Davis where he left the stadium and he's like, I'm retiring now. But what he did is honestly, it might be worse. So apparently in the locker room before the game, he was upset that he lost his starting spot, even though he should have known when he signed there that Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw, those are the two linebackers. And Dre Greenlaw's coming back from injury eventually. And he was upset that he wasn't getting the start. And whatever, you want to be upset about that? Sure. The Niners needed him. This game was in reach basically all the way up until that Purdy interception at the end. And I'm not saying that Devondre Campbell not going in is what cost the Niners this game. But quitting on your team when the game is still within one score is absolutely unbelievable. And since then, the Niners, They didn't give him the satisfaction of cutting him so he could go sign with a new team, go on a playoff push, whatever. They're like, no, we're just suspending you. You are still on our team, but we don't want anything to do with you. And again, that might be it for Devondre Campbell. Why would someone want a player that quits on their team willingly at halftime? I have no idea. But yeah, the Niners season, so many things went wrong early. They had a lot of close games early on, too, that they blew leads in. I'm not saying that the Super Bowl window is closed for the Niners, but I think next year might be their final year before some drastic retooling. Because at least going into the next year, it's like, okay, Christian McCaffrey, back healthy. Isaac Guerrero has looked pretty good. Those will be your two starting running backs. Brandon Ayuk, hopefully back fully healthy, a full training camp, and he gets back to his 2023 self. George Kittle still good. Jawan Jennings has really emerged as like a solid wide receiver. Ricky Pearsall maybe takes a jump. The defense is still solid and has players everywhere. But 2025 might be the final year of this Niners core that we see. And past that, I have no idea, because then they got to make a decision on Brock Purdy. Next game up here into the Sunday slate. Cowboys 30, Panthers 14. The Panthers should not have been favorites in this game. There was the first time they were favorites in 34 games or something like that. That sounds right. But yeah, the Cowboys, I wouldn't say they whooped them. The score would say that they whooped them, but the Panthers just made a lot of bad mistakes, you can say. And when I say the Panthers, I mainly mean Bryce Young. He had 4 turnovers on the day. But yeah, the Cowboys. Cooper Rush is a solid, dependable backup. That is something that all teams should strive for, is to have a Cooper Kupp who can come in there and, again, play solid, good ball. You don't expect much from him, but he plays good enough to put the team in positions to win, and that's what he did. He played solid in this one. Rico Dowdle has really come alive in the last few weeks. 149 rush yards for him in this one. CeeDee Lamb continues to be CeeDee Lamb. Micah Parsons, 2 sacks in this one. Also got juked out by Bryce Young, and then Bryce Young ended up fumbling just a few moments later. But yeah, the Cowboys they're not a good team. They're not a well-coached team. Again, we talk about teams with compete and like lack of drive issues. I think the Cowboys are definitely up there, but they're a hard team to play against week in and week out, even despite the injuries, just because they do have a lot of talented people on their team. Sucks that Trevon Diggs is injured and is out for the rest of the season. He has, I think it's looking like an 8-month recovery for him. I'm not exactly sure how he injured. I'll tell you on Friday's show when I do the injury update. But yeah, Cowboys are solid. Panthers on the other end. It's tough to win a game when you have 4 turnovers, all from your quarterback. And despite the 4 turnovers, Bryce played okay. Had some bad throws, obviously. Had some good throws. Jalen Coker had a big game, 100-plus yards for him and a touchdown. But, again, not a bad thing if you're the Panthers to lose this one. You want high-quality players, and I don't think there are a lot of high-quality players in this draft. So them staying, I think they have the 6th pick right now. They can go a lot of different directions. I think they're probably going to take the best edge off the board whenever they do draft, but yeah, not much to say from the Panthers, so we'll keep going here. Chiefs 21, Browns 7. Chiefs took care of business, and unfortunately, at the end of this game, Patrick Mahomes gets rolled up on. It is an ankle injury. Andy Reid said this morning that they're going to do some testing, and he's going to kind of feel it out today to see how he goes. But Mahomes is obviously a huge injury. But here we have Carson Wentz as the backup, who In 2016, he goes down with his own leg injury, and here comes the journeyman vet backup guy to lead them on a potential playoff push. And that's the thing. Carson Wentz was actually had like a big injury and he was out, where I think Pat Mahomes might miss this coming week. We'll see, I guess. But I'm down to see what Carson Wentz can do for a game. I think that's basically it. I think Pat Mahomes is going to be fine. The Chiefs are in a tough stretch of their schedule, though, where I think they have to play 3 games in 10 days. I'm not going to verify that. I think I saw someone say that, and I think that sounds right, because they have, I think they play a Saturday game this weekend, and then they will play Wednesday, or they'll play the Christmas game. So I think it would be a Sunday's game against the Browns, Saturday's game against whoever, and then Wednesday's game. So if they can bench him for Saturday, let him get some rest, and then play the Steelers on Christmas, that would obviously be ideal for them. But Chiefs just, again, continue to do what they've been doing. Trent McDuffie had an awesome interception in the end zone where Jameis chucked one up, and McDuffie was able to see, like, in the scoreboard, oh, Jameis threw it, and was able to, like, look up and be like, oh, the ball's coming now, and then turn around and make the play. Trent McDuffie is absolutely awesome. Browns on the other side, Jameis being Jameis, 3 interceptions in this one. Just not a good performance, really, from anybody. Nick Chubb broke his foot. He's obviously out for the rest of the year. And it just sucks. Nick Chubb, who had a devastating knee injury at Georgia, worked his way back, had some incredible years with the Browns, and then has that same devastating knee injury again, works his way back from it. And he hasn't looked like the Nick Chubb that we've seen before. And now he breaks his foot, where, again, broken foot isn't the end of the world, but I'm very interested to see how his offseason shapes up, and the Browns are going to have to make some moves, because they're going to have someone with a $70 million cap hit next year. I think that's what his cap hit is. Absolutely crazy. So they're going to have to free up some money, and I'm not saying that should be Nick Chubb, but I hope it's not. I think Nick Chubb deserves the benefit of the doubt from the Browns to just kind of let him stay there, but Nick Chubb, when he was healthy in his prime, was, I think, one of the best pure running backs in the NFL. Never caught the ball, never put him out there in a screen pass or whatever, let someone else do that. But just running the ball, my God, was he fucking fantastic. And I hope this isn't the end for Nick Chubb, but we'll see. Next game up here, Dolphins 12, Texans 70. That was wrong. Holy shit. Dolphins 12, Texans 20. It felt like 70, I guess. And we'll start with the Texans here. Derek Stingley is a phenomenal corner. He had Tyreek clamped up for most of the day. 2 interceptions from him in this one. I think he is the best corner from that 2022 class, and that 2022 class includes guys like Ahmad Gardner and Trent McDuffie. Again, we're not using Sauce Gardner's nickname until he earns it back. Stingley has absolutely lived up to the hype. One of the best corners in football right now. But yeah, the Texans didn't even play that great. And that's the part that absolutely kills me. Their pass rush is obviously great. Danielle Hunter, Danico Autry, Will Anderson, like, they were getting after Tua. We started a right tackle who has never played right tackle in the NFL before with Jackson Carman, when we had guys who have played right tackle in the league, at least at some point. Were they good at it? No, but I would like to think that maybe putting Isaiah Wynn at right tackle or Liam Eichenberg at right tackle might have been better than putting a guy who's never played there before. Again, probably not. I'm splitting hairs at this point, but the Texans aren't a good team. The Dolphins obviously aren't a good team, but they only beat us by 1 score, where we had 4 turnovers from the quarterback. It's just, I don't give the Texans a lot of credit for beating us because we beat ourselves, and that's what we continue to do in any big game that matters late in the season against winning teams is we come out flat, we come out unprepared, and it's not good. Yeah, I can't even really shout out anyone on the Texans offense who played well. Like CJ Stroud played well enough. Nico Collins had 2 touchdowns, but he also had 14 total yards. Joe Mixon, we bottled him up pretty well, and he's been kind of the driving force of that offensive attack. Shameful. It was a shameful performance from the Dolphins, and that's just kind of the season. It is what it is, but again, I think we have a 2% chance, and if we win out and the Chargers lose to the Patriots and someone else and the Colts lose and some yada yada yada, I don't care. It's done. Bring on draft season. It's Malachi Stark season. Yeah, so disappointing. I don't even know where to start with this. Do I want to start off with the good things that I can talk about this team? Yeah, okay, let's start off with the good. The defense did its job. And again, one of the classic Dolphins games where one of the units doesn't show up and we end up losing. This time the offense didn't show up. The defense absolutely did its job. Zach Seiler has been one of the best players on this defense all year. He should be in the Pro Bowl. He has been making so many plays. People thought he was a Christian Wilkins merchant. Turns out it might be the opposite. Obviously, Wilkins hasn't played. He was injured this season for the Raiders. But Seiler has been doing great. Calais Campbell has been great at almost 40 years old. Chop Robinson, the rookie, I think he had 2 sacks in this one. He's been a real bright spot on the offense and someone who I didn't expect to have to play a ton this year with Jalen Phillips getting back from his injury before getting hurt again. I thought Shaq Barrett was going to be there. I thought Bradley Chubb would be back at this point. I don't think Bradley Chubb is coming back at all at this point. His Dolphins career might be done. But shout out to Chop for really stepping up and really developing in year 1. I am very excited to see what the future looks like for Chop in the next few years. Those are the things to be excited about. Other than that, Jordan Brooks is also good. I do like Jordan Brooks, but Jordan Poyer is a bum. Javon Holland is just, he looks so checked out. And it's sad because I know that a team like the Vikings and with Brian Flores, who love Javon Holland, is going to sign him to a relatively good contract, not overpay for him. And he's just going to absolutely ball out for the Vikings next year. And it's going to piss me off so much because I know he is a really good player. He's just not playing like the good player he should be. Okay, talk about the bad. And mainly, let's talk about this offense. Nothing works. The run game is non-existent. Everything is a check down. We can't get Tyreek involved whatsoever, and it's the same stuff year after year where Mike McDaniel's supposed to be this offensive guru, he doesn't adjust ever. And I don't know why it is so hard to get an offense with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who I know got hurt in this one. He's fine, but he is hurt. Jonnu Smith and Devon Achane. It shouldn't be that hard, but it is. Shout out to Malik Washington. He's also playing really well. He might be our third receiver, but it's so painfully hard. And Chris Grier, the Dolphins GM, decided to extend Tua, Mike McDaniel, and Tyreek Hill all this offseason. And I think he was a year too early on all of them. Now, I'm not going to shit on the Tua contract. I think, given what the QB market is and keeping your guy, I still think Tua is a good, very good quarterback. But again, I put him in the tier of guys with Jared Goff, with Brock Purdy, with a Dak Prescott, prime Kirk Cousins. Like that's who we have at quarterback, and that's not a bad thing. But we just have to temper our expectations of how much Tua can do without everything else also being perfect around him. And again, it's fine, but when you have no run game, when your two guards are turnstiles, when you have a guy at right tackle who's never played right tackle before, it's tough. When Jalen Waddle's also hurt, did I say that? I don't think I did. Like, I get why it's tough to make plays, but Tua played terrible in this one. And there were, like, the interceptions, it's not, and I tweeted it out, it's not just that he throws interceptions, he makes the most, or he throws the worst interceptions where that should have never been thrown. There was safety Caden Bullock was literally just standing in the middle of the field and was just like, oh, I got that. He played terrible and doesn't show up, but I do think he's a good quarterback, and I think that contract's fine extension-wise. But could we have waited a year more, maybe paid him less? Because it still would have been in the $50 million range, but it could have been a little bit cheaper. And it is what it is. And that's the extension that I'm least mad at. I think Mike McDaniel definitely got extended too early. If it were me, I would be cleaning house completely after this year. I don't think that ownership is going to fire either guy. Chris Grier should definitely be fired, but Mike McDaniel should be on the hot seat definitely going into next year. And then finally, Tyreek Hill. We decided to re-up his contract. He would have been on the final year of his deal. Paid him $30 million for, I think, 3 more years. We want to talk about Tua and just this team in general not showing up in big games. Tyreek Hill deserves a lot of that blame too. There was so many times in multiple big games last season, whether it be against the Eagles or the Chiefs, where Tyreek fumbles. Tyreek drops the ball. Easy catches that it's out right through his hands. Doesn't make the plays. And again, Tyreek Hill was an all-pro, one of the best receivers in the league last year. But when you're getting paid $30 million to be the best, you should be the best. And those little mental mistakes hurt this team. And he also does it when it matters most. And it's the same thing in this game on Sunday, too, against the Texans. I'm spending way too much time on the Dolphins here. But every single Tua interception was a target to Tyreek where there was that last one where I'm not fully blaming Tyreek on that one because Tua underthrew the ball a little bit, but Tyreek high-pointed the ball, had the ball in both hands, and Derek Stingley just ripped it away from him for the game-sealing interception. There was another play where Tyreek ran the route a little wider than he should have. And again, Tua is all anticipation, and he's throwing to spots where it works when it works. But again, when everyone is not perfect, this offense falls apart. And that's the signs of a bad offense, because when everyone needs to be perfect, no one usually is ever perfect constantly. I don't know. Tyreek, he's good. I would have been completely fine just being like, okay, Tyreek is gone. We have $30 million extra dollars to spend somewhere else. I don't know. Was a bad game. Things need to change drastically for this team. I just don't know what it will. I'm at 50 minutes already for this. I need to keep moving because we have still so many games left, so we will keep going here. Bengals 37, Titans 27. An absolute slop fest of a game. 10 turnovers in this one. 6 from the Titans, 4 from the Bengals. Joe Burrow played decent, I guess. 3 touchdowns. I think like 276 yards for him in this one. But again, 3 turnovers from him. Not great. But when the Titans have 6, makes it a lot easier for them to do it. Chase Brown deserves a lot of love, especially fantasy love, because down the stretch he has been absolutely great fantasy-wise. I don't think he's a great NFL running back, but fantasy running back, he has been an absolute stud. Shout out to the Canadian. Only other thing from the Bengals that I can really think to talk of here is Safety Jordan Battle drops the ball, would have had a pick six, drops the ball at the 1. And that's not the only time we're going to be talking about that today. So Titans get the ball, touchback. Again, doesn't matter because the Titans were absolutely dreadful in this one. Titans on the other side, though. Highlight had to be T'Vondre Sweat fumble recovery. Oh my God. T'Vondre Sweat fumble recovery. Running with the ball. 6'4", 366 pounds, rumbling down the field. Here comes Bengals offensive lineman Alex Kappa to try to bring him down, and T'Vondre Sweat just gives him a nasty, nasty stiff arm. I love when the big boys get to make plays and run with the ball, and T'Vondre Sweat is probably the heaviest person to carry a ball that far in a game. That might be a real stat. I think he probably ran at 25 something yards, where I don't know how many 366 pound guys are making 25 plus yard plays, but shout out to T'Vondre Sweat. That was a lot of fun, and that was kind of just where it ended with the Titans. And the Titans are in a weird spot draft-wise now. So I was 50-50 on okay, Will Levis, again, he played terrible to start the season, got benched, came back, was playing some pretty good football, and now he's back to his old Will Levis ways. But now they're in a weird spot because the Raiders and Giants seemingly are both going to draft quarterbacks at the top of the draft. And if I'm the Titans, there's no one else that I would even consider taking. Forget Jalen Milroe, forget Carson Beck, obviously. The only other guy who would have been there is Drew Aller, but Drew Aller is going back to school now. He probably would have ended up being my QB1, but the Titans are in a weird spot because, Will Levis is going to be back, but he can't be your starter going into next year. You need to find some kind of bridge gap guy who can generate some kind of offense and isn't a detriment to their team, and I don't know where that's going to be. Again, lots of good quarterbacks available, okay quarterbacks, I should say, that are available, but Titans need to find one of them, and now that Drew Aller isn't, because I thought, okay, there should be maybe 3 QBs drafted in the first round. Now it's only 2, and I'm still not even confident on those first 2 guys, but again, story for a later time. Next game up here, Commanders 20, Saints 19. Commanders are just a very unserious team. I felt that every time Red Zone went to this game and they were in the end zone, it was okay, the Commanders are going to score, awesome. And then all of a sudden it would cut back, and where the Commanders were at the 2-yard line about to score, and all of a sudden they're 20 yards back, and it was penalties, or it was Jane Daniels fumbling the ball inconspicuously. They're just an unserious team. They won the game, congrats, but the Commanders should not be taken seriously by anyone. Again, they are well ahead of where I thought they would be for this season, but this should have been a slaughter, and it wasn't. And they allowed the Saints to come back in this one. Jane Daniels, again, box score-wise, stat-wise, had a very good game, but he left so many plays on the field. Terry McLaurin could have had another 3 touchdowns if it wasn't for overthrows or underthrows from Jane Daniels, but I'm not taking the Commanders seriously. Saints on the other side, maybe they could have won the game if Spencer Rattler played the whole game. Again, Spencer Rattler didn't play great, but he at least looked like he can play at the NFL. Jake Haener looked like a deer in headlights for all 10 of his throwing attempts. Not good, but the Saints team, again, they played well. 8 sacks on the day for them. And again, they don't have some crazy pass rush. So the fact that Jane Daniels is getting sacked 8 times, that's not great whatsoever. Cedric Wilson might have been their best quarterback of the day on his one attempt through, I think it was a 40-yard touchdown pass to Alvin Kamara. Shout out, it's, again, wasn't pretty from the Saints, but I will, huge shout out to Darren Rizzi. He's not going to get any serious head coaching looks, but he's been coaching his ass off, and this team has been playing very, very hard despite all the injuries that have happened. And I think they're 2-3 under Darren Rizzi now, but they have been in every single game, and I think that deserves some credit. But I think the most impressive stat from Darren Rizzi's 5-game tenure so far is his opponents have missed 7 field goals in those 5 games since he's taken over as head coach. Darren Rizzi, I would love for you to be the Dolphins special teams coordinator next year, because that's a play I didn't talk about, but fake punt by the Texans where apparently we knew that that was a play that could be called and we just didn't cover it. Danny Crossman is an absolute bozo. But Darren Rizzi is doing his job. He should, again, he'll be on an NFL staff next year. Wouldn't be shocked if the Saints try to retain him. Like, I don't know if that's like a weird, like, oh, the interim head coach stays on to just stay at their special teams role. I have no idea. Next game up here, Jets 32, Jags 25. One of the most surprisingly interesting games from this past Sunday. Davante Adams was an absolute stud to close out this game. 135 receiving yards in the final 4 minutes of this one. Aaron Rodgers kind of had a vintage Aaron Rodgers performance. Also led the team in rushing yards, which is absolutely insane. But as much as it sounds like I'm giving the Jets credit, you barely struggled to beat this Jags team with Mac Jones at quarterback. So yeah, you won the game. Things kind of looked decently put together. You beat the Jags and you were in a nail biter with them, with their backup quarterback. They have so many, I mean, everyone's injured at this point. I mean, some teams more than others, but the Jets, again, they should have won this game. They did win this game. Not much to really say left on them, other than, yeah, we got some vintage Rodgers-Davante connection there late, and that was fun. Jags on the other side, Brian Thomas Jr., big game in this one. I think he had 2 touchdowns and 110 yards. Did I get that right off the top of my head? Let me check, just because I want to know. 105 yards. Either way, pretty close. So Brian Thomas Jr., 10 catches, 105 yards, 2 TDs, and he is clearly the number one rookie wide receiver from this class so far. And he's probably had the worst QB play out of any of those guys so far. Like, Marv has Kyler. Rome Odunze has Caleb Williams. I forgot about Malik Neighbors, so talk about Neighbors in a little bit here, but Brian Thomas Jr. probably got ranked a little unfairly, and he should have been closer to those big 3 instead of just being the clear-cut number 4. But he is an absolute stud, and if he gets more consistent QB play, he might emerge as one of the best receivers in the NFL over the next few years. And other than that, Mac Jones, I would love Mac Jones as a backup. Mac Jones is cocky in all the wrong ways, but I appreciate that attitude, especially like it's a starter's attitude as a backup, and as a backup who's really not that great anyways, but I appreciate the cockiness that Mac does bring to the table. He had some really good plays. He had some really bad plays where they were, where were they? I think they were on like the 4-yard line. It was like 2nd and goal or 1st and goal or something like that. And pass rush is coming. He scrambles out right. Instead of throwing the ball away, he willingly just he runs out of bounds and takes like a 5-yard sack. Awareness level maybe a 0, but yeah, I wouldn't mind Mac Jones as to his backup. He's comfortable in that role, so we can move on though. Ravens 35, Giants 14. Lamar Jackson, absolutely incredible. There have been 8 games in NFL history with 5+ passing TDs and 50+ rush yards. Lamar has 4 of them. He's a stud. It truly, and I think stats-wise, numbers-wise, Lamar should be the MVP favorite right now, but obviously that's not how the MVP works. There's always a narrative behind it, and Josh Allen has the narrative and all the hype behind him right now, and he is going to win this award. barring some dramatic fall off in the last few weeks. But Lamar is playing incredible. Lamar is having a better season than his 2019 MVP and easily a better season than his 2023 MVP. And that's kind of where I think that things are, like why Lamar isn't getting enough MVP buzz is because he did win it last year. And last year he won it when it was kind of like, should you have won it? Maybe not. I don't know. But it's like, who else would have won the award if he didn't? Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy. Like, at least we kept the sanctity of the award intact, more or less. But Lamar is playing great, more touchdowns than incompletions in this one. But what else did we expect? They were playing the Giants. Giants on the other side. Tim Boyle played. That's not good. And I was talking about these rookie receivers, and Brian Thomas Jr. has had the worst QB plays. But no, it is far and away Malik Neighbors catching passes from Daniel Jones, Tommy DeVito, Drew Lock, and now Tim Boyle. That's dreadful, but Neighbors is on pace to have over 1,000 yards in his rookie year, despite all of the bad quarterback play thrown his way. So shout out to Neighbors. Everyone else, I have no idea. I don't know what ownership is going to do with Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. I think Joe Schoen deserves a lot of the blame for how the Giants roster has ended up. Obviously, he gives that massive contract to Daniel Jones, which was completely unwarranted. And then he lets guys like Xavier McKinney, Julian Love walk out the door. I think there's a couple other guys I'm forgetting too. I mean, Saquon, obviously, but I'm not really too mad at the Saquon one. And Brian Daboll has had a few like bad plays, but I still think Brian Daboll's a good coach and will be snapped up immediately by someone to be their offense coordinator. But yeah, Giants, I have no idea where they go. I don't even think if they draft Cam Ward, if they end up drafting Sanders, I don't think it works. I don't think either of those guys are really that good. But either way, I digress. Let's keep moving here. Steelers 13, Eagles 27. I'm going to be an Eagles hater in this one. This is exactly what the Eagles should have done to the Steelers. There is a lot of comments going into the game about A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts not getting along and blah, 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 and the passing attack is weak. And Jalen Hurts, very good game, very strong passing game. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, very big games from both of them. But again, this is what they should be doing. This should be an expectation for the Eagles week in, week out. And that's fine. If you want to run behind Saquon and have a strong running game, that's fine. But having the passing attack should be like that more or less every single week. You have the best offensive line in football. You have A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, who are two of the better receivers in the league. Passing attack should be relatively easy. And Jalen Hurts makes it look a lot harder than it needs to be sometimes. But hey, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. So shout out to the Eagles for taking care of business. Their defense, again, playing absolutely lights out. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Nolan Smith, the Georgia boys are coming alive on that defensive line. Secondary's playing great. Everyone's playing great. But again, you took care of business against the Steelers, who didn't have George Pickens. And the Steelers, it was bad. The defense did as much as they could to try to slow down the Eagles, but it was death by a million paper cuts, and that ended up with the Steelers only having 2 possessions in the second half and only running 11 plays in the second half. That's bad. That's very, very bad. And yeah, without George Pickens, this offense is terrible. Like, he's fine, he's okay, but he doesn't have anyone to throw to. And no George Pickens hurts them a lot. Their run game, obviously, isn't very good, especially, again, Eagles' defense is really good, but Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, neither of them could get anything done. TJ Watt leaves the game with an injury. It's an ankle injury. Hopefully he's back soon, because if TJ Watt is out, there goes the Steelers season. I mean, I don't think the Steelers are real Super Bowl contenders anyways, but they're going to make the playoffs. They're a solid team, hard to beat, whatever, but we'll keep going here. Next game up here, Colts 13, Broncos 31. I mean, the Colts just shot themselves in the foot a million different ways in this one. I will start off with the Broncos, though. Overcoming a bad Bo Nix game, that's a positive. Bo Nix, did not play well. A few brutal interceptions from him in this one, but and I brought it up again, I brought it up a couple weeks ago, but got to start talking about Nick Benito as maybe a Defensive Player of the Year candidate. He had his pick six against the Browns just 2 weeks ago, and he does the same thing again, albeit not a pick six, was a lateral from A.D. Mitchell trying to go back to Anthony Richardson. Shouldn't have ever thrown that pass, but Benito, another touchdown. I think he has 11 and a half sacks on the season, which doesn't sound too high when we're talking about sack leaders, but it's been a relatively quiet year for sacks anyways, at least in my opinion, but Nick Benito definitely deserves some love there. But yeah, Broncos playing well. They continue to do what they're doing. Colts on the other side. Jonathan Taylor had the opportunity to go up, I think 20-3, kind of really put the game in the Colts' favor, and he drops the ball on the 1 yard line. I can give Jordan Battle, the Bengals safety, a little bit of leeway because he's a defensive player, and he doesn't have those opportunities very much, but maybe if he doesn't have those opportunities, he should hold on to the ball more. Jonathan Taylor has done this thousands of times by now. Hold on to the ball. It's easy for me to sit here on my couch and be like, I'd always hold on to the ball, but I would. Because I don't know why you wouldn't. I don't know why you would even think of, I'm just going to drop the ball before I'm clearly in the end zone. I don't get it, but that really swung this game. And I'm not blaming Jonathan Taylor. I mean, obviously it doesn't help, and it's definitely a big part of the reason why they lost this game, but the whole offense was dysfunctional. The Colts defense actually played really well, which it kind of hasn't been. But yeah, the offense just looks dysfunctional. Obviously, again, a few really bad Anthony Richardson plays, a few wow Anthony Richardson plays, a few Anthony Richardson plays where the Colts receivers let him down, but it is what it is. AFC playoffs are basically set right now. I think Broncos have a 95% chance of making it. The Chargers have I think like an 88% chance or something stupid like that to make it. I think the only teams that still have a chance are like the Bengals and the Dolphins at like both under 5% chance. It's not happening. Either way. Next game up here. Bills 48, Lions 42. Josh Allen MVP. I know I was just talking about it's like, oh, how Lamar, whatever. But again, when we build in the narratives, Josh Allen MVP, the only player in NFL history with 35 plus pass and rush touchdowns in 4 straight years. He has been otherworldly these last 3 games. No turnovers, no sacks even. He's really putting the team on his back and playing absolutely unbelievable special football right now. It's great, and it's not even like, again, people were worried about his pass catchers and everything, but it is a team effort for everyone on the Bills right now. I think Khalil Shakir leads the team right now with like 750 receptions. Or 750 receptions, Jesus. 750 yards, and then goes less and less after that. But, like, if you look at the guys who were there at the start of the year, so Khalil Shakir has exceeded expectations. Dalton Kincaid's been underwhelming. Curtis Samuel just isn't involved whatsoever. Mac Hollins is Mac Hollins. Keon Coleman has lived up to his rookie hype. He's having, like, a good year. But, again, it's not a great rookie year for him, like, in terms of some of the other guys. They trade for Amari Cooper, who, again, 0 targets in this one. They didn't even need him. Again, it doesn't matter. It's death by anybody. it could, again, in this one, it was Ty Johnson's day. Ty Johnson leads the team in receiving. And if I were to tell you Jared Goff threw for 5 touchdowns, nearly 500 yards, and Ty Johnson led the Bills in receiving, you probably would think that the Lions kicked the shit out of them. But no. No, they didn't. Only disappointment I can say in this game was Amari Cooper killed my fantasy season. Yeah, not thrilled about him getting 0 targets, but that's fantasy. It's a crapshoot week in and week out. I had 140 points the week before. I had 65 points this week. Absolutely dreadful. But yeah, and then I think the only other thing I want to bring out with Josh Allen is in a 2-week span, Josh Allen has the 5th highest mark in fantasy football history. Number 1, if you're asking, is Cloyce Box. Now, who is Cloyce Box? We will find out on Friday's show, because weirdly, when I'm doing my one NFL player in history, that was the guy who I wanted to do first, but I thought I would do a homage to my favorite player, Alan Page. But no, Cloyce Box was brought up on the nightmare via rail trip from hell coming back to Ottawa when Jerry Jeudy was going off and we were looking at like guys who like had like big wide receiver performances. And Cloyce Box in the 1950s, the fact that he showed up on a tweet like 2 weeks later when I've never seen that name ever in my life is weird. The algorithm's weird. But I will talk about Cloyce Box on Friday's show, and we will talk about his crazy 2-week stretch where he had 100 fantasy points in 2 weeks. But yeah, last thing from the Bills, the front 7 deserves a ton of credit. Greg Rousseau, Von Miller, Ed Oliver was a stud in this one, and this Lions offensive line is really good, and there was a few plays where like Ed Oliver just bull rushed, ran over, pancaked Frank Ragnow. Frank Ragnow might be one of the best centers in football, if not the best. Yeah, so they deserve a ton of credit. Secondary was hurt, banged up. They got gashed, but is what it is. Bills hold on. Lions on the other side. It sucks what they have gone through this season and the injuries that have come their way, and that's it. Like, I think that their offense is still good enough to keep up with anyone, but that defense is just such a liability, and I do believe in the coaching, and they're going to play hard and get the guys going every single week, but just talent-wise, it's so tough to overcome all of the injuries that they've had. And it's not even starters. We're talking about backups at this point too. But I'm just going to list off the guys. Aiden Hutchinson, Aleem McNeil, John Kaminsky, Marcus Davenport, Derek Barnes, Alex Anzalone, Malcolm Rodriguez, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, Carlton Davis, Ennis Rakestraw, Afitu Melifonwu, and now David Montgomery as well. It's tough. Like, again, David Montgomery is like the first real big hit they've taken on offense so far this year. But all of those defensive guys that I listed were all contributing or starting level players for the Lions, and they're all on IR. They're done for the year. It's always next man up in this league, but I mean, Dan Campbell said it best when they lost that NFC Championship next year. It's like, sometimes you never know when you'll get back, and sometimes you don't get back. And this Lions team was better than last year's team. You could see that they were probably the best team, Super Bowl favorites, and then some of the worst injury luck that I've ever seen as a fan. And they're still a really good team, even despite all those injuries, but their offense is going to have to put up basically 40 points every game if they want to make it to the Super Bowl, have a chance of winning the Super Bowl. But, yeah, Lions came back in this one. It was a good performance by them. Good fight, but the Bills, now the number 1 team per my power rankings now. We can keep going. Bucks 40, Chargers 17. Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, that connection was humming in this one. Mike Evans needs 251 yards to get to 1,000 on the season. Very, very doable for him. I think that's like 80 something average per week. I think he's going to do it. In this one, he had 9 catches, 159 yards, and 2 TDs. Now, Brett Coleman, again, one of my favorite follows on Twitter, he brought up a question of, how many wide receivers do you actually take ahead of Mike Evans all time? And Mike Evans is a first ballot Hall of Famer. I think both of those statements are incredibly dumb. As much as I love Brett, I don't think Mike Evans is a top 25 receiver all time. I don't think he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but then I saw people replying being like, Mike Evans ruins the Hall of Fame and he waters down what it does, and that's where I draw the line. Mike Evans might not have been a top 5 receiver throughout his whole career, but he's now on his 11th season, and I can say that every single year he has been a top 10 receiver. And that's really, really, really good. And he's had 1,000 yards every year in his career, and that is really, really, really good. The counting stats are going to be there. He's already top 25 all-time in receiving yards. He has shown no signs of slowing down so far, and you can't tell me another 3-4 more years of production that he doesn't deserve to be in. If he retires right now, I already think he's a Hall of Famer, but the people who think that Mike Evans waters down the Hall of Fame, get out of there. Like that's unbelievable. That's bad football knowledge. You don't know ball. Mike Evans, definitely a future Hall of Famer. First ballot, no. Future Hall of Famer, easy. Other things in this game, like Baker now, I think he has 32 touchdown passes on the year, a career high for him. I love the resurgence of Baker. It's still unbelievable that the Browns, when he was battling a shoulder injury, and there was a lot going on in that locker room, that they were like, nope, we're going to move on from you, and we're going to trade for a rapist and give him fully guaranteed money. But that's the Browns. The Browns are the Browns. But happy to see Baker playing really good football. And I put Baker in the tier of guys, again, like Tua and Goff and Purdy and Dak. But Baker has a different something to him, where he's not as talented and has like those elite or like athletic traits anyways when you go to guys like in that next tier but similar skill level of guys like Herbert and Hurts and Jordan Love. But Baker just wins. Baker just he just wants to win football games, and having that drive and having that drive be from your quarterback, being like he's going to win no matter what it takes, you can't teach that, and that's why Baker is awesome. Chargers on the other side. Once J.K. Dobbins got hurt, and kind of just more of a matter of time of when he got hurt given his history, and he had a great year, but they have absolutely no running game anymore. Justin Herbert is banged up. He has a bad ankle. Like, Ladd McConkey can't be the sole guy, the sole weapon on this team, and that's just kind of what he is right now. Again, the Chargers, they're going to make the playoffs, but do I think that the Chargers are a great football team? No. I would put the Chargers in still the same category of good but flawed football teams, and the other teams I have in there, it's like I have the Chargers, I have the Bengals, I'll still put the Dolphins in there, the Texans, the Commanders, the Seahawks, the Rams. Like, again, a lot of good football teams in there, but the Chargers aren't kidding themselves, aren't fooling anyone. Again, way better season than I thought that they were going to have, but next year is their year to be like, okay, let's actually put an offense, because their offense isn't good. And their defense is fine. Their defense went on a crazy run to start the year, but it's not that good. I will say, shout out to Tarheeb Still, one of their day 3 picks at corner. He's been playing lights out. He's been playing really, really good football. He won't win Defensive Rookie of the Year, but he definitely deserves some award buzz anyways. I am putting together my own Cover Zero Awards ballot right now, and he will be on the ballot. I'm going to kind of do it like the Heisman, where like first gets 5 points, second gets 4, and then so on and so forth. So it's not just like you pick your winner. It's more of a nuanced thing, and because I think it's more fun when you get to rank guys instead of just being like, that guy's the pick. But either way, I digress. Two more games here. We're almost done. This will be under an hour and a half. Pats 17, Cardinals 30. Again, Cardinals did exactly what they should have done. James Conner ran all over them, 100-plus yards from him in this one. Trey McBride, another huge game, 9 catches, 87 yards on the day. And Trey McBride now becomes the player with the most catches in a season with 87 with no touchdowns. And they tried. They tried to give him the classic shovel pass where he caught it on the one and just couldn't get it in. He will score a touchdown before the season ends. I am confident about that. But yeah, again, the Cardinals are just a more talented team than the Patriots, and they did exactly what they should do. They beat the lesser opponent, and they did it quite easily. Patriots on the other side will start off with Christian Gonzalez, Gonzo. Again, I would put him as a top 5 corner in the league already. He consistently shadows the number 1 receiver on the opposing team. And this one, it was Marv. And I expected, and this is the reason I started Amari Cooper, because I was like, Gonzo is going to cover Marv. Marv is not going to have a good game. And yeah, Gonzo locked him up. There was a few big plays where Gonzo was able to punch the ball out or swat it away last second, where lesser corners wouldn't have been able to do that. But again, Marv didn't have a good day, and I was right in my logic of not starting him. But again, Amari Cooper, 0 targets. So despite Marv not having a good day, it was still better than... Basically, yeah, I started myself at my flex position right now, because Amari Cooper got as many targets as I did on Sunday. So yeah, shout out to Gonzo. He's absolutely crazy. Shout out to Marcus Jones, too. He was leading the Patriots in receiving yards at half. If you don't know who Marcus Jones is, he's one of their defensive backs, special team guys. Also gets the occasional offensive snaps, apparently, but they're just getting ready for Travis Hunter. And I think that Travis Hunter in New England would be a ton of fun. I mean, just the corner duo of Gonzo and Hunter would be awesome. They got so much money. If they can sign a guy like T. Higgins and have Travis Hunter come in for 10, 15 snaps a game on offense, maybe, that's something that I would be excited about. And I would be excited about because I think Drake May has been the best rookie quarterback so far this year. Obviously, hasn't played the full year, started later than most of these guys, but for what he's working with and what he has around him, I think he has been the most impressive rookie quarterback to watch. He's got no one to throw to. He has no offensive line, where, at least with Bo Nix, you can say, oh, Bo Nix has no one to throw to. Bo Nix is one of the best offensive lines in football. Caleb Williams, he doesn't have an offensive line. He's got DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, and Keenan Allen. Jane Daniels is also the other one too, but I see a lot more Doi Jane Daniels, like, again, playing really good football, but I would think if Drake May was on that Commanders team would be much better, which is crazy to say because they are overachieving a ton right now, but Drake May is playing really, really good football. I think the play calling is also holding him back. Alex Van Pelt, I am assuming he's going to be a one and done at offensive coordinator. He just, again, the Pats are slowly getting into the modern game of football where you can't just run the ball a ton, dink and dunk down the field. You have a special talent at quarterback in Drake May who can make these wild plays, who can run the ball. I mean, Drake May's averaging more yards per carry than Michael Vick did in his rookie year. That's absolutely insane. And they're just not using May as they should. And maybe that's shielding him from not getting hurt or playing out of structure. And they're just like, no, play in structure. But I don't think that Alex Van Pelt should be their offensive coordinator going into next year, but we'll move on. Final game here. Way too long of an episode. Packers 30, Seahawks 13. Going into this game, I was believing in the Seahawks. I was like, their defense is playing well. The run game looks pretty good. And then Josh Jacobs just punched them in the mouth that first drive and did it on the second drive too. And that was kind of it. It got close. It did get close at one point, but Geno Smith leaves the game with a knee injury. I wasn't able to find any new updates on Geno Smith, but he leaves the game. Gets a little close, but relying, again, here comes Sam Howell. And I was interested to see what Sam Howell did, because obviously ended the year terribly for the Commanders last year, but he started off decently well. So I was like, okay, let's see what Sam Howell can do. And he was absolutely dreadful. He had 5 net yards in his 15 attempts. That's the 9th worst QB performance of all time. Not great. Not great whatsoever. But I think if Geno Smith stayed in this game and was able to finish it, I think that there's a chance that the Seahawks could have come back and won. Again, hypothetical, we have no idea. Packers are playing very good football. Romeo Doubs, 2 TDs in this one. Jordan Love has definitely limited the turnovers over the last month, which is awesome to see. Playing more like the Jordan Love like he did to end last season too. I saw something that it's like Jordan Love when it's during the Toyotathon is like crazy high, like TD numbers and no interceptions, and then not during the Toyotathon, it's like a bunch of picks, still like good amount of touchdowns, but like again, not as good QB play, which is just funny. Yeah, Packers are good, but they got out to the lead early, held on to the lead. Good job for the Packers. Seahawks, though, I mean, we talked about Sam Howell. He's not going to win you a game. This Seahawks defense is really fun, and they are playing really well. And yeah, did they let up 30, but when Sam Howell's putting his defense in bad positions consistently, that's kind of the way it goes. Because they did. They forced some turnovers. They made some big stops in that second half to get the game a little closer, and the offense just couldn't follow up, couldn't help them out. But the Seahawks defense I'm really looking forward to it next year. It looks like under Mike Macdonald, the second half of the year, it's really been like, this looks like a Mike Macdonald coach team. Leonard Williams has been playing some of the best football of his career. Byron Murphy has been playing really well, and I'm interested to see the jump he takes in his sophomore year. Reek Woolen, Devon Witherspoon, Julian Love, Ernest Jones has been making some good plays at linebacker. Like, they got some guys, and I only think that they're going to get better. They got to figure out the offense. They got to figure out the offensive line more specifically, but I'm excited to see what the Seahawks defense looks like next year anyways. They still got an outside chance of playoffs and whatnot, but I will be talking about next year because I do think the Seahawks are relatively done. I don't know. They might have a game against the Rams that I'm just not aware about, but that'll end it here. Again, under an hour and a half, so decent, but that's what happens when I take out like my college football highlights thing, which is usually under 3 minutes, to adding, God, I don't know, I probably spent 10 minutes on my top 15 prospects, but it's that time of year, and I want to get into the NFL draft stuff just a little bit earlier than I did last year. So, yeah, that's going to do it. Next episode, previewing the upcoming week. Going to do the Blind Thursday Night Football recap, and I'm going to be talking about 1950s player Cloyce Box. Get ready for that. Yeah, as always, if you've liked this, please like, share, retweet, subscribe, tell all your friends, and until next time, peace.